Okay, so sorry, but this a little bit longer intro is necessary for all of it to make sense and so you can understand everything, because sometimes I just really like to geek out when it comes to keyboards. Maybe actually not so much from a gamer's perspective, but from a reviewer's perspective. But I hope you will enjoy this video. It will be quite informative. And yes, maybe sometimes I will mix up things and sometimes things won't work out because everything will be done in one take. I also have to plug in everyone to show the software and so on, also the lighting. So all I can hope for it to be entertaining, but also informative. So what's the actual premise of this video? What I wanted to do is make one separate video for the HyperX L Elite RGB, for the Razer Huntsman Elite Chroma, and for the Logitech G 513 Carbon. But then I decided it just makes too much sense to make a combo video with all three of them, comparing, since they actually have a lot of things in common. They are all of mechanical, all of them are mechanicals. All of them are RGB, all of them have a wrist rest, and in this case actually all of them have a, I would say, comparable MX blue switch, because the HyperX has an MX cherry blue, as you can hear. The Razer has the optomechanical, as you can see here, the new purple one, where I actually have something quite nice that I got from Razer, even though I'm not quite so sure if I will actually demo it. It's in a scale of 8:1, the switch, because if I would push this down it would click so loud, then my microphone would definitely distort, but this is kind of to show what it does. So sorry Razer, I know you sent it to me to show this, but it's just too loud for the video, maybe at a different point. But it's also a kinda MX Blue comparable switch, even though it's noticeably faster, maybe better for gamers. And then we have the GX Blue from Logitech, which is also, as you can hear, kind of a blue switch. Now, they are also available in different switches, because this one is also available in brown and red, and this one in tactile and linear. This one is just as it is. Now, price-wise, this one is at around 130 euros by now. There is a non-RGB version, which is at 100. This, yeah, the Razer is at about $200, and I think like $30 or $40 less for the non-RGB version. But I mean, if you pay so much money for a high-end mechanical gaming keyboard, just go for Chroma. RGB is nicer after all. And then the 513 is at around 170 euros. That's that. What woof should I start? I would say actually with the design, and I'm actually going to start with the one that takes up the most space here, the HyperX L Elite RGB. I actually already reviewed this one as the non-RGB version with the MX brown switch. Liked it a lot and still like it a lot for a lot of good reasons. First of all, I think this wrist rest, which by the way is fixed. You can, I mean, detach it, but the way it works like this is good. The other ones are not really permanently mountable like this one is, which I like. And it's, as you can actually see here, very flat, as the whole keyboard actually. Very well built in general, this keyboard. And the good thing about this wrist rest is that it's very flat, but it has just about the right angle. Here it provides some texture, so it's grippy. Like it a lot. At first I actually wanted to have the kind of texture the whole way around, but I never really felt like it's necessary. Now in terms of extra features and so on, what we have is a USB pass-through. We also have, for example, on the bottom, one level of changing the angle, where, for example, the Razer has two. Then we have 3 extra buttons here, for example, to change the brightness of the lighting, change through 3 different profiles, activate the gaming mode, obviously media buttons, volume, scroll roll. That's mostly already it. Build quality, like I said, is really nice. It doesn't really bend at all. They did a really good job. Keycaps, pretty simple, pretty well done. What I like is the fonts. Everything's done well here. Now let's get to the next in line when it comes to the pricing here, with about 170 euros. This is, as you can see, the Logitech G 513. And now, I know it looks for some reason a little bit greenish, but I don't really know why. And a little bit purple, but that's due to my LED lights. So this one, as you can see, is a lot more minimalistic. It's also a little bit, I would say, if you can say this, thinner than especially the Razer. It also doesn't come really with an angle. The one odd thing that I've noticed is that the legs actually open to the sides and not towards the front like most do. And it's only just one angle. There is also USB pass-through. No extra buttons or anything. There are extra functions, as you can see here. but for that you need the FN key. But other than that, the build quality also really nice with this metal plate, doesn't really bend. I mean, the biggest improvement over the G413 that I already reviewed is that this time the metal chassis, or whatever it was the last time, even though the Roma G switches I liked a lot, there was a lot of metallic reverb that was super annoying. And this, that also comes with the 513, is my highlight. It's the wrist rest. First of all, it's nice and flat, but super deep cushioned, very deep. And there is this nice little angle. It's supposed to be magnetic, but I don't really feel much of it. On the Razer, if I attach it to that, I actually notice a little bit more. But I have to say that I would pay it easy just about $20 just for this wrist rest and use it with other keyboards because it works so well. Because, for example, and this is why I have it here, what I've used for a while is the Shark Zone. But that one, even though the angle looks very similar, is a little bit more slippery and I always slip down, so it's not that great. And for example, what I've also used with my Razer Ornata for a while is the wrist rest that comes with the Fanatic keyboard that I've reviewed for a while. Works great with the Ornata, but for some reason not with the Razer, but I'm going to that as well later on. But I have to just say, this is the most comfortable rest and the kind of best rest that I've actually used because it's super nice and soft. It is just about the right size. The angle and everything feels just so right. So that's why we are actually going to the Razer already. Now in terms of the buttons and everything else and the cables, we will get to that a little bit later. Especially the cables, they're all pretty much the same. So you get this very stiff, not really flexible cable. In all cases with actually 2 USB-A ports or plugs. But for some reason, I don't see, sorry if I maybe missed that, but I don't see a USB pass-through here. Because let's look around. On the front, no USB. On the bottom, no USB. What we have here is actually, as you can see here, 2 steps. If you want a little bit of a more flat angle and the bigger one. That is nice. Obviously, all of them have some rubber feet. Now on the left side, as you can see, this is obviously also thicker than the Logitech. Even though it's maybe not better in terms of build quality because this actually flexes the most. Not that I really care about that because they are all very robust. Also, no USB here and no USB here. So I think the extra port could maybe just be for the lighting of the wrist rest here because this is one of a unique thing. I don't think really many keyboards have this yet. The wrist rest is also extra lit up, as you can see here with the port. So this could be the extra port. Now, with this wrist rest, I am not so happy for one reason is that, first of all, there is this kind of metal on the sides. And as you can actually see this is a little bit of a sharper one. And for some reason, I don't even know why, I'm a lot on the side, so I noticed this. It's cushioned, as you can see, actually quite nice. But underneath there, it's actually very hard. So not that comfortable for a longer period of time. Actually, this will hurt quite early. So if I could just get this one, because this one works perfect with that one. Absolutely great. But yeah, it's nice illuminated and so on. I will show this later on. We have media buttons, along with a volume wheel that, as you can see, wiggles a little bit. And sometimes it actually gets kind of stuck. So not the highest quality. Buttons are also not lit up for some reason. What is also a thing is that the secondary buttons are not lit up. The secondary functions, which is also not a thing on the Logitech, but on the HyperX. Not quite sure why some brands do this, but yeah, it's not a big thing. Also, nice keycaps and so on. Build quality is fine. The wrist rest is not my first choice. I mean, it would have been actually nice if you could have paid maybe 20-30 bucks less for the keyboard if you wouldn't have gotten this and if you want to just optional, because I personally wouldn't use it. What I would use is this. This works perfect. Even though I have to mention one thing, I use a wrist rest all the time, but I also sit actually not ergonomically and not healthy, way too low on my desk because my desk is quite high. And if I sit higher like I do now for the review, the other wrist rest is fine. But that's just that. Now, what I would like to go now into is the software. And I hope this will work out. Because I have to plug it in actually now into the PC where I'm recording this. So, yeah. Things might not turn out perfectly. It should light up any moment. It did. We can actually also turn off the light now. There is still a little bit light coming on, but it doesn't really change much because, as you can see here, it doesn't really change what you see in terms of lighting. And what I'm also actually gonna do is this now. Switch to this view so you can also actually see the software, and actually the one that I need is obviously hidden. Okay, here it is, the HyperX Ingenuity software. The cool thing about this keyboard is that you have 3 different profiles that you can set up and save onto the keyboard, and you can just quickly change them like this. I mean, you can actually see it also in the software. This is super handy, and obviously here the brightness. Yeah, great. You can switch it, and obviously the gaming key. So changing the profiles and everything else is actually super easy, and once you enter it for the first time, you will actually get kind of a walkthrough, so it shows you, for example, the lighting and so on, because we could now change it if you want to see it in action. So you always see what's going to happen, even though it's not right now kind of switching. It does, but slowly. Now, let's get into it. Go into software. Here you can see the lighting. You can change the effects. You have, yeah, I think the typical ones: explosion, HyperX flame, breathing, and so on. I always use personally static, but that's just me. Then you can set the different zones. This is actually super handy. You just set a different zone, always specify which buttons, and then you assign a number to it. Actually super, super handy. Always there's a freestyle mode, which makes it even more so flexible. Gaming mode, you can disable, for example, also Alt-Tab, Alt-F4 and such, and then you can set up macros, also a macro. As you can see, this is the kind of walkthrough if you enter a profile for the first time, so maybe don't know what to do. This is for different games and so on. So simple software, but it works really nice. You can then just drag it down to here, and then you have the profiles set up. I mean, this is a super easy solution, I would say. I like it a lot. So, wait, let's actually see this. The secondary functions are lit up. It's maybe not quite visible. Let me actually try to get a little bit closer. Those are lit up as well, so you can see them in the dark. Especially with the secondary function, I think it's helpful, because I don't always want to just think about where was the dollar sign, okay, it was 4, or where was the end sign, it was 6. I mean, it helps sometimes, and I'm not sure why this one is so black here, but it doesn't matter. Okay, let's turn the light on. This was the software for this one. You've also seen the lighting. I like the lighting because it's very even. The colors also always match what you put up on the screen, which is not quite the case on the other one. So let's actually jump to the next one. And now I have to switch again. Sorry, I know, not the most professional video, but I kind of enjoyed this way for some reason this time. Leave a like if you think the same. No, I'm just joking. Okay, now the next one would be the Logitech. Okay, let's plug that one in as well. You have seen the pass-through. I need just to find the right button, because on the HyperX, the good thing was the button was actually marked. Okay, we have it here. Let's turn off the light again. You can see the lighting actually looks brighter than it does on the, and you can see it also without the lighting. So the lighting seems a little bit stronger than it is on the HyperX, which it also is. Yeah. Secondary functions not lit up, which is okay. Brightness is also changeable via the secondary functions here and so on. So let's check the software. We don't have an HyperX anymore, so let's get that out of the way and go to the Logitech software. The Logitech software is also super, super easy. So for example, you go here, select the device. Here you can change the keys, what kinds of functionality you want to give them. Also for the secondary functions, or the ones that are here. And then lighting. It's also super easy. You just drag pretty much the space that you want, give it a color, super easy. Also with obviously different kind of lighting patterns and so on. So it's pretty much the same, so I don't think I really have to get into that. The lighting, I have to say though, the colors are a little bit off, because sometimes I set, like for example, yellow and it doesn't seem quite yellow, or I set cyan, it doesn't seem quite. So the colors, maybe you have to play a little bit more with them, because they don't always do what they have to do. For example, also white. White is not really white like on the HyperX, but it's more like very, very bright blue or something like that. But software super capable, works really, really well, which already brings me to the Razer. Let's get to that one. And once again, I have to switch, sorry. I don't know. I don't know, what, for once a video like this, where it gets a little bit messy, but everything is live, is kind of fun. I don't think it's fun for you though. Okay, so let's plug it in. Okay, so actually one cable is enough. I don't need the second port, it seems. Once again, let's turn off the light. Lighting here seems also bright. As you can see, the lettering is a little bit different. And let's actually go to the software. I would say the Razer software is the one also, even though it has now profiles you can set up on. As you can see, no secondary functions. Works okay, but it sometimes just doesn't work all the way. Once you save it to the device itself, it's fine. But for example, here lighting, I actually almost don't want to get into it because it's so complex. You can go into the Chroma studio, and I'm actually gonna skip this, sorry, but it is so complex, and sometimes if you enter it, it sometimes messes up things. So I really like the software. Setting up everything works well, if it works well, but it does now. As you can see, the lighting, obviously we have all those similar effects. The buttons are, when I said that aren't lit up, I meant just the actual symbols, because as you can see below that they are. And for example, if I attach now, this would be also lit up. For some reason I don't have the profile set up like this, but believe me, there's also a nice glow, and actually the whole frame, as you can see here, is lit up. And you would see the same on the wrist rest if that would have been set up, but it's just not, because I didn't really use it. So what should I get into now? Let's check a few things before I'm actually going to the switches, but I have to turn off this keyboard now because I record my stuff over the keyboard with hotkeys. And now I'm going back to the HyperX again. And this is already kind of a conclusion and something like that. This keyboard, $130, is it worth it? I think absolutely, because it was actually priced at $160, $170 when it came out. So by now it's actually cheaper. $130, by now the cheapest one, even though it has the same pretty much functionality. It has MX Cherry Blue switches, red or brown. Let's actually get into these. Now, obviously, maybe not a gamer's first choice, but for someone like me who types a lot, it's my first choice. And for gaming, it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't make me better or worse if I have a different switch. Obviously, your mileage may vary and may very well make you worse. But I would say, from a gamer's perspective, this would be my least favorite choice of the ones that I have even here. Obviously, there are even better choices, like for example, MX Lightning and so on. But let's get a little bit about it in the sound demo. And yes, I'm a lefty, by the way. I don't use WASD, I use cursor keys, just before anyone mentions that. And German layout QWERTZ, just because some people ask that. So what I have to say about the Switch, I like it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen this one so many times before already, whenever I can get a review unit. The thing is just that, in comparison to actually what Logitech does by now with the GX Blue and what Razer does with its purple one, I think it sounds the cheapest one, because let's compare this. Sounds a little bit kind of thin, a little bit kind of clickety-clack, but on a high-pitched sound. Now let's compare this with the GX Blue from Logitech. I mean, this sounds like there's a little bit more meat behind it. It sounds a little bit less cheap clicky. And they improved the big thing over the G413, where there was a lot of metallic rework. This is completely gone now. This one doesn't have it either. But this feels good. The only thing that I've noticed, the two buttons that I don't like so much is the spacebar and this one. So the wider buttons, as you for example can see, sound a little bit cheaper. They don't have quite the same satisfying click. I mean, there's usually always a difference here also. But yeah, that's a small thing, but the feedback is great. And obviously I have to mention this also about the blue. The blue has the strongest resistance of them all. It has the highest actuation force and it has the most noticeable click. So if you want super tactile and loud, this is the one you go for. If you want it a little bit more quiet, a little bit, it feels more premium, I would say. There's also less resistance here, but the click is just about as noticeable and the feedback is absolutely great. I can type on this one great, obviously on this one as well. And I prefer those a little bit more flat keycaps because maybe it's visible, those feel a little bit wider than these feel. But this for typing, especially with the resistance and the overall thing is great. For gaming it's also a little bit better because it's just a little bit lighter to access. And it's still hard enough in terms of feedback and resistance that you don't make so much mistypes, because this is what I've noticed, for example, on the Razer. Now, I'm gonna say this right up front. The Razer is everyone's first choice for gaming in this comparison because this one is comparable what I've heard to an MX Lightning switch. But what I noticed, just as someone who has never used an MX Lightning so far, I've tried it a little bit, but not really in a review or so. A very low actuation force. And it clicks awesome, the feedback is great. The only one this one though has is a little bit of a metallic reverb. Especially on some certain buttons it's even more so noticeable. So maybe you will hear this now. I'm not quite sure if you can hear this. Especially if you bottom out quite hard. The metallic feed is there. It's not an issue. It's not as like on the G413 where it was for me pretty much a deal breaker. Here it's fine. You will sometimes hear it. Maybe it will annoy you, but most times it will, especially if you have not a complete silent room. Now these three buttons feel a little bit cheaper. Also the wheel, like I said, this is maybe a little bit cheaper than the rest of this keyboard, but the keycaps feel nice, obviously with the switch. That is not plugged in, so you don't see that. But is the optomechanical switch anyway better than the other ones? I mean, not that I would have noticed. I mean, it's faster due to the less resistance force and the shorter travel and so on. And it is for gaming the better one. It is the fastest one of these ones. But the other ones are not really for gaming so much as the linear switches would be, or the brown switches in comparison. So these are for all actually more typing experience. And the typing experience on this one is great, but what I've noticed, due to the lesser actuation force, I also noticed that I make a little bit more mistypes, because this would kind of lead me to my conclusion, which one is the winner. Well, the winner is my personal still, which I use on a daily basis by now, at least once I've reviewed all of them, is my Onata. And I know the Onata is not for everyone, because that's why I didn't even include this in this review, because mecha membrane switch is a completely different sound. As you can hear, a loud click, but a lot of resistance force, which is great for typing. And I can type on this super fast. Maybe not quite as fast as on this one, because this one has a slower actuation force. But what the Razer Onata has is a little bit more resistance, why I don't make so many mistakes. But maybe you can see one big difference. Here, it's not just the button or the key that is lit up, the font, it's everything around it. And this, I think, looks nicer. The wrist rest is not really good, that's why I don't use it, but I really like the lighting, I like the typing. It's actually by now quite cheap, you can get it for like 60 bucks already. So price performance winner is obviously the HyperX Elite. I mean, 130 compared to 170 or 200. It comes along with the same features. It comes along with a Cherry MX switch. Obviously you can choose which one. It comes with a really good wrist rest out of the box. So this is an all-in-one, great all-rounder top. It doesn't have really any downsides, no kind of metallic sound. You have a great software, or it works at least absolutely fine. Easy access to the profiles, easy access to the lighting. Everything here is absolutely well done. No downsides. Now the Logitech comes for 170, which is a little bit expensive for a quite, I would say, minimalistic one, because no extra buttons. Yes, USB pass-through, but it comes with a few advantages. The best wrist rest by far, and I think it's actually nice that you don't have it attached all the time. You can easily have it there if you want to, or not if you don't want to. Here you have to get it off, so great solution. Then we get a switch. I mean, this is my favorite switch when it comes to the sound. The one on the Razer sounds absolutely great as well. Is almost on par. It has a little bit more of a cheaper click. I mean, it sounds a little bit more wobbly. This has a little bit stiffer buttons. I mean, in terms of this. So it just sounds a little bit more high quality. Great tactile feedback. Just about the right resistance. So I guess this would be my first choice. The lighting is not quite so much. This is the weakest one in terms of lighting because it looks a little bit off. It's, even though it seems bright in normal use, I didn't found it exactly what I wanted it to be. But yeah, 170 isn't cheap. So once this gets a little bit cheaper to maybe on sale, 130, 140, this is a great buy because after all, I mean, media buttons, I don't think we need them, but therefore you get a really great switch. Obviously, if you want tactile or linear, get that one. You get the functionality, you get a really nice software. It's easy to configure. Really, really nice. And yeah, I can recommend it. Now the Razer, I know what many will say now. Overpriced, cheap crap. In cheap when it comes to build quality, not so much in terms of price, since I said overpriced. But I have to say, it really comes down to personal preference, because on this one, compared to the ones that I reviewed before, like the Black Widow, I don't see the build quality issues that I had there, where, for example, the buttons were so loose and they wobbled a lot and they fell off. I don't have this. The buttons now seem stable. I like the switch a lot. Sound is good. Not quite Logitech nice, but it feels better than the MX Blue, because I have to say by now, my so beloved MX Blue sounds pretty cheap in comparison, and the feedback, especially if you type very fast and accurate, this will be a joy. And this is the best for gaming, especially since it's on par pretty much with an MX Lightning. This should everyone. No, but 200 is a lot. The good thing though is that Razer quite often has sales on different sites, sometimes on Razer itself, and if you can get it for something cheaper, or if you maybe don't need RGB lighting, get it without it. But yeah, that's that. So all three of them are really, really good. I could use all of these three as my day drive without an issue. I just personally chose the Ornata. It works just best for me. Out of the box, like I said, this one is just the most complete package. But the other ones, I mean, I can't fault them for really anything. Yeah, buttons here aren't perfect. Software was wobbly, but it got better. The wrist rest out of the box is not my cup of tea, but yeah, people might disagree. Yeah, I'm not really quite sure what else to say. If you have questions, or if you want to know anything else, like maybe more information about the buttons, because this is a thing. Now, a pro gamer could tell you so much more about the switches. I can, as a normal reviewer that also games, just tell you what I see. I mean, I don't think I have to get into the blue. The blue is not really meant for gaming, but it works. Nice feedback, and it has especially the most tactile click. But the other ones are a little bit softer, not quite the tactile the actuation resistance, which makes it better for gaming. Speed and so on doesn't really matter for me. If it would be for gaming, I would choose the optomechanical one because it's the faster one. If not, then the GX Blue would be my next choice, because it also works amazingly well for typing, where I had a little bit more of issues. So my first choice for the Switch in this comparison, for me, for typing and for gaming as a combo, would be the GX Blue. Then definitely this one, because it's best for gaming, but a little bit too easy to actuate for typing. And then this one. So yeah, I think Cherry has to get a little bit better, because I think, yeah, the others didn't just catch up, but they actually took the lead. But yeah, I hope this super long video about just 3 keyboards was good enough. I mean, I like reviewing these, but I have actually no real idea what people want to really know about it. Because yeah, I know, no fancy videos, no fancy lighting demos and so on. I mean, if you want to see the lighting demos, there are different sources. That's not really what I do. But I hope what I do was fun enough for you, or informative, or at least acceptable enough to give it maybe a like and maybe subscribe to the channel. But otherwise, until next time, bye.